All right, we're going to call the meeting to order of the Fargo Human Relations Commission, Thursday, December 20th, 12:03. My name is Barry Nelson, Chair of the Fargo Human Relations Commission, and I'm going to turn to my left and ask for us to introduce ourselves around the table. Oh, eating cookies.
Rachel Hoffman.
Matura Alier.
Leticia Mizero-Hillroot.
Tia Brossett, Fargo Planning.
Nicole Crutchfield, Fargo Planning.
Miranda Wolf, Fargo Planning.
Paul Jensen.
Cheryl Schaefer.
Hamida Dafani.
Thank you all. And just to note that we do have quorum today, and appreciate the responsibilities of the commissioners to be in attendance so that we have this accomplished. Next in the item is approval of the amended agenda. Everybody has the agenda in front of them. Any questions, or do we have a motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve.
Paul, thank you.
Second.
Second, Cheryl, thank you. Any further discussion? All right. Agenda will move ahead. We also have minutes from our November 15th meeting. Again, a chance to observe those, and I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Thanks, Paul.
Second that.
Matura, thank you. All those in favor of the minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved. Do we have public comments for this meeting this noon time? Anybody wish to address the Fargo Human Relations that isn't on the agenda? Christian? Yes, please join us at the table. And since we're recorded, we are always asked to talk directly into the microphone.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. My name is Christian Harris. I'm the Executive Director of the New American Consortium for Wellness and Empowerment. We're located on Main Avenue in Fargo here. I was guest of the mayor this morning, and in January, I was privileged to be selected as a Rotary Peace Fellow, and I traveled to Thailand, where I studied peace and conflict prevention. And having returned from Thailand, we have decided to launch a peace and conflict prevention initiative in the Mohair, Fargo, and West Fargo communities. And I've been going around meeting with mayors and meeting with other stakeholders to see how we can get this program going forward. I don't intend for us to wait as a community to see conflict coming in our community before we think about finding solutions. So we're working towards prevention. And so the mayor is very excited about it, and he asked me if I could stop by and visit with the Human Relations Committee this afternoon and see on your agenda when I can do a presentation to give you a better understanding of what this initiative will be like. And so I'm very honored to be here this afternoon just to let you know that I'm prepared to meet this committee later in the future and to do a presentation on what we'll be doing in the communities, and so that you can be informed as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Welcome. And thanks for introducing this exciting initiative that you are about to, are in the process of embarking on. Any questions for Christian? And I think we would certainly, in action would be, we always do have an education component, a presentation component, as we are today. So certainly could take that for even our well, we don't meet in January because of MLK Day, but so February, we certainly would put that on the list. It seems to rise to that level. Questions for Christian? Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
I look forward to scheduling that.
Thank you.
And we have our first presentation today is with the ADA update. And Michael, you're going to be, or no, sorry, Nicole, you're going to kick this off, and then we'll go into our presentation.
Yeah, correct. Michael and I are going to tag team this, and also, I realized the forum contacted me and was looking for an actual report. And this is actually a verbal report and not a documented report in terms of something. So I apologize for that maybe miscommunication. When Barry and I were talking at the executive committee, I was just giving him a little background on how ADA regulations work, and he suggested that would be a good update for the entire committee. And I just wanted to give a quick overview. This might be elementary for some people, but I'm going to have my phone up here for notes. But basically, just as a reminder, the American Disabilities Act is a federal mandate, and that is passed on to property owners, government agencies as a whole. And it's basically a relationship between landowners and the government agencies, and as well as local jurisdictions to work on the requirements directly. So each landowner has their responsibility and relationship with the federal government, and as public properties, we of course have that relationship with the government, with the federal government, and each state passes on that authority in different ways. And so the state of North Dakota has not passed that authority on. They basically keep that relationship. They have not taken on that authority. They basically keep that relationship at the federal level. And so if there's violations, it goes directly from the complainter to the at the federal level. And so we have, of course, the regulations come to us in different ways, through the building codes, through Title VI, and through other means, and public buildings as such. And really, what it does is require free and equal access, and barrier prevention, and they have thresholds. Like if there's I'm just going to use an architectural example. For instance, if there's a building with 2 doorways, at least 50% of them have to be accessible. And if there's so many public parking spaces provided, so many of them have to be accessible. So some of it's formulaic, and then it's also important to recognize that the access can be in different ways, right? Physical or not, and they continue to expand that definition. The federal government, continue to expand that definition to account for visual and hearing abilities, as well as other constraints. And so one of the things that often comes up is if just say case specific, if I'm a store owner and I have a building, what is my requirement? Well, the requirement is to follow the federal mandate, the Accessible Disability Act, and Americans Disability Act. And if someone were to have a concern or a complaint, it's basically the city does not have any review authority, nor does the state do, and so it's a void, and it's actually a direct relationship with the feds. And I think that's a little bit of the situation we have in North Dakota, whereas in some other states they have an intermediate mandate between like the state and the state agent that holds the city accountable, that holds I shouldn't say the city accountable, but uses the local jurisdictions as a avenue to enforce those regulations. So for instance, and I'm pulling from my personal experience here, the state of Texas had mandates on the local jurisdictions to do a review and permit review and do an inspection. And the state actually, deployed inspectors to go around doing assessments. Obviously, the state of North Dakota is absent from that. So to introduce Michael a little bit, so one of the commentaries and discussions we've been having as a commission here is, what is the city's obligation to not only do Title VI, but to have someone on board to take care of the city facilities. And so with that, I'll introduce Michael, who's been working on that item.
Great. Well, thanks, Nicole, and thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. And let me just first say thank you for your service to this commission and to the citizens of Fargo. We appreciate that very much. As Nicole said, we have various responsibilities as a local government entity. We're a bit different from the private sector in that we need to maintain compliance for our facilities that we own and we manage and we operate, but then we also provide referrals and references, as Nicole mentioned, to the appropriate state agencies and federal authorities for individuals alleging ADA issues or concerns. So as Nicole said, as landowner, though, we do have quite a few responsibilities, and I'll just give a couple of examples. One, when we construct new facilities, our new City Hall facility, for example, you'll see our sidewalk on the south side of our property winding all the way up to the property. That's an ADA compliant sidewalk that was installed because we are compliant to the ADA regulations for new construction as well as existing construction. So in this case, this facility, for example, one that we continue to own and maintain, although they're leasing it out to private property owners and private property users. We are continuing to maintain that compliance throughout, and so our building and ground staff actually provides that for us. We actually have an ADA coordinator that works on our staff, and right now that's a person who's acting in the role as the director of buildings and grounds, and he's a person that if we had a department, for example, say the police department, I'll just use an example, if they had a concern about door thresholds or the tensions on the doors and how much swing pressure there is on that door, that's an individual that can come out and actually help them answer questions and make sure that they're installing a door correctly or making sure that we're accessible to the public at all times. We're also fortunate here, in addition to our staff on the maintenance side in building and grounds, to actually have for new construction the inspector, the building inspector for the entire city, who is also a code expert, both in the building code as well as ADA. And so Bruce Tarleson, who many of you know. And so Bruce, in his capacity, also is available both to us as an in-house resource, as well as to the public and community agencies and community partners to help them interpret and make sure that we're installing and permitting projects that are not only code compliant, but also ADA compliant. So we're unique in that regard in that we probably have many, many more resources within our, within our staff than other private organizations may have. And so as we talk about our future and we think about where we want to go in 2019, we're going to place a greater emphasis, as many large institutions do, large employers do, on facility management. And that's going to be a new position for us in 2019. In our budget in 2019, we have funds that are set aside and a position that will be recruited for very shortly called the Director of Facilities Management. And that will be a new professional position that has responsibilities for all city facilities, whether you're in the police department, the fire department, here downtown at City Hall, Public Works, and working also with other community partners like the Park District as well as Cass County. And so that's going to be a brand new position to us. We have not had that level of position in the past, and so we're very excited about that. That'll be a person who has got, I believe it's a bachelor's degree for a requirement and at least 10 years of facility management experience. And so at the same time that we're looking for that position, I know Concordia College is also hiring that same position, MSU Moorhead. City of Moorhead just recently filled this position. So I think it's the professionalization of that function. I think a lot of the government entities are saying that this is important to us, not only for green technology and energy efficiency and conservation, but also for ADA and other issues. And so we look forward to working with this individual. We've got a few ideas of who might be interested in this kind of a role, but I think it's going to be a real help for our staff and I think for Bruce Tarleson's group and inspections as well. So a new position, and certainly somebody will make sure to introduce to this group in early 19 as soon as we get that individual here. So happy to answer any questions that you would have.
Great, Michael, thank you. That's really positive news in terms of the position that you announced. Paul, did you?
Yeah, I have a question on this subject. So, Bruce Thompson, he's with the maintenance department, I understand, right?
Bruce Tarleson is our inspections director, so he's the building code official.
All right, but this new position you're talking about, is that going to be somebody who also deals with sort of sustainability?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So all of the green initiatives, as well as accessibility, maintenance contracts, performance contracts, that's one thing that we have not thought about comprehensively as an organization, is performance contracting for HVAC and mechanical systems. That's one that is quite disparate, and in the individual facilities and building tenants have sort of directed some of those efforts. So we want to try to create a more comprehensive vision for facilities At the same time, we have the police department moving into a brand-new police headquarters here later in 2019 that we think is a real opportunity to try to understand what their new steady state is going to look like for operation. We have other facilities that we own in downtown, like the former public health building and now the soon-to-be former police department headquarters that we'll either look to lease to somebody or demolish, trying to look at those facilities as assets and what can we do with them. And so I think this is going to be a broad-ranging position that will have quite a few responsibilities, but definitely professionalizing some of our citywide view and perspective to try to deliver the best value out of our facilities.
Thank you.
Last month when we met, we acknowledged the passing of Keith Bjornson, who was on our commission and always kept me personally aware of how our community is doing or not doing when it comes to people with disabilities. And maybe you can clarify for this, because I know one of the two issues that I was confused about that the two recent completed athletic complexes, well, not the one's not recent, but the Dome and then the Shields Arena, and I recognize those are not city-owned, so that distinction is important to me. But so what role, if any, does the city have when entities that are open to the public and operated by other entities? Can you clarify that?
Absolutely. So on new construction and remodeling, we would be inspecting those to make sure that they're code compliant to the accessibility standards and rules and regulations of today. But typically, and that's a great case, Barry, where you may have an existing facility, it may have been around for a while,
Right.
but a complaint is received. And I think that's that clarification that Nicole was offering earlier about how the states have looked at ADA differently, I think, in compliance with private facilities. We are more than happy to be a conduit to try receive information and try to point people in the right direction. So I'd say whether you're talking about the downtown library or Carlson or Shields Arena, if there are ever concerns in the future, we definitely want to know about those concerns if they're public facilities, even outside of our jurisdiction.
Okay.
So I'll use that Park District example as one. Making sure that we can direct people, FPS is another. School facilities are a common one that you hear about as well. And so we're more than happy to be a referral with our position and making sure that with the appropriate state or federal authorities too, that we point people in the right direction. We're happy to do that. But it's going to be a different answer depending on the kind of facility that you're in and at what stage they're in. Because if it's something that's been there for some time and we're not permitting that activity,
Right.
it's been there for some, we just don't have a regular, say, inspection protocol of a commercial facility. But absolutely, complaints can be received and investigated.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Other questions for Michael or Nicole? Yeah, Commissioner Strand, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and not so much a question, but I think in the honor, in a method of honoring Keith Bjornson, and we need to make this a very high priority. He was consistent and passionate about enlightening us about the needs for accessibility and the challenges out there. And up until his dying breath, almost, he was challenging us to make sure this is a priority. So I hope we keep that we honor that. I hope that and it's not just, it's sometimes sidewalks, it's sometimes accessibility to Fargo Theater, it's sometimes our law enforcement, our street department that may not be removing snow where they're supposed to park their accessible vehicles. It's those little things which can be so life-altering and challenging to somebody who's disabled. And so my challenge to us is let's have him in our mind and make sure that in the end he would say thank you for honoring these requests, and not just because he's passed, go, okay, now we don't have that pressure on us. That's my challenge to us.
I appreciate that comment, Commissioner Strand, and I actually had just now, it's almost 2 months ago to the date, I think it was October 18 or 19, I had a really great 20 or 30-minute conversation with Keith, and we exchanged some emails too, and just I completely agree. And I think one of the things we want to do in the first 6 months of this position being here, we have a couple of very critical first priorities. ADA is one, just to refresh the plans, make sure that we're trying to instill some new thinking there, and just thinking comprehensively again about all these city facilities. But then number two is really getting the alignment of the 13 FTEs that we do have in our buildings and grounds staff that are all over the city driving and in and out of various facilities. It's interesting, I actually had a spreadsheet just produced by the finance department of all of the insured assets that the city owns and maintains. And on an 11 by 17 spreadsheet, at about 12-point font, that was over 5 pages of detail, from lift stations to warming houses to, it was unbelievable. It really was striking to me that the city does in fact own as much property as it does. So I think that we need to establish a baseline, get to the ADA piece immediately in the next 6 months to a year with that as a first priority. And then beyond that, then look at some of these larger energy and green initiatives that Paul referenced. I think those are things that are also ripe that we need to get to, but I'll put that as number 3 behind ADA and some of the baselining.
Great. Other questions?
I have a question about the south side ramp for the new city hall. Are handrails going to be added to that? And have there been any complaints about that? Because I know it's a very long ramp, and if anyone's in a manual wheelchair, that seems like it would be difficult to navigate.
Yeah, actually, I haven't received direct feedback on that, but I know from personal experience on that first freezing rain, I took a slip too, at the very end of it, and I think we've certainly talked about it internally, just to see if that is going to be in that present condition for, I'll say even 2 to 3 years, something to help public there at the bottom. The other thing that we're doing with our auditor's office is installing a payment drop box there. We receive a lot of elderly visitors to City Hall simply to pay a bill. And if we can do something at a drop box there like we used to have just right out here on the south side of the Civic, we think that that could also be helpful so that we're not sending people all the way up that grade. And that grade will not hopefully look like that in the next 5 years as we think about this new plaza vision of trying to elevate some of that space. We, in our facility next door, are at the new flood-proof elevation. That's why the building is as high as it is. But the one thing that we were just talking to Bishop Land Design and our landscape architect that we're working with is just the grade differentiation between 2nd Street and 4th Street is significant. And if you can work on your plaza vision to bring that up, that will help remove some of that distance. And I think it'll just visually be a little less daunting for the public that's walking in. But I think in the interim, absolutely, we're going to keep talking about handrails, other safety measures. Our staff is sanding it much more vigorously than they were here at this facility before. So I would say in these icing conditions, they've been really good, but there are some things that I think we can do at the bottom of that. So thank you for that comment. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Other questions? Well, thank you again for bringing this information to us. It's very well timed. We're in the middle of our strategic planning, so this can inform the thinking we do going forward and what role we play on these important issues, and look forward to meeting the staff person. I thank you offering to bring them back to this commission. We take a particular interest in these areas, so.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm going to move us into, we have another guest with us today, Sean Kaufman. One of the functions we do is we help support initiatives in our community with funding, and this is a great opportunity to see that the money we send out there has impact within our community. So thanks, Sean Kaufman with Human Family. They will give us an update about the Human Rights Film Festival.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Commission. I plan to keep my comments brief so you can keep your agenda moving, but really, as Barry said, I'm here to just say thank you for supporting the Human Rights Film and Arts Festival. The film festival took place in November, and I've got a few comments, some details about what happened there. I gave everybody our program and a couple of other pieces that I'll refer to, and a sheet with some updates, and I'm just going to kind of touch on the pieces that only impact Fargo. But as far as the film festival, we had 2 nights in Fargo, and we actually added a afternoon screening, so there were 3 screenings of films from around the world. We had 15 total films that were played here in Fargo, a mix of documentaries, shorts, feature films, and they covered a broad range of subjects from immigration issues to homelessness to the MMIW crisis to agriculture and food modification. So there was just a wide broth, I should say, a wide berth of films. So We had approximately the same number of people attend this year as last year, about 210. We were dealing with a surprise snowstorm on one of the nights. I came up from my basement and I was, whoa, I can't even see across the street. But interestingly enough, that night we had 130 people show up, which was a 56% increase to the number of people who attended that night previously. So we think we would have had many more if there wasn't a snowstorm, but I guess you have a film festival in November. What's a film festival in November in North Dakota without a snowstorm? So it was a really successful event. We had a panel discussion on Thursday night about homelessness in North Dakota. We had about an hour-long conversation with area experts in homelessness in the city, and it was a really good conversation. We're going to be putting that online here in the next week or so. And then on Friday night, we had a conversation around the MMIW crisis that included area experts and as well as some filmmakers from Canada who had produced a film called 1200 Plus. So we heard very positive things overall about the festival, and both of those conversations were recorded and will be put online here in the near future. We also, I'm big on collaborations and partnerships, so we did a couple of really cool things. We partnered with NDSU's student organization with the Red Sand Project. So the evening we were talking about the MMIW crisis, they were out front with vials of red sand that could be used as an art installation along the sidewalks, where basically they put red sand in the cracks to have people remember and speak about human trafficking, which is a large part of the MMIW crisis. We also, the red handout I passed out, and I'm putting together a more formal report for the Native American Commission, who helped support this, but we also partnered with the Silent Witness Initiative, and we had life-size silhouettes of women, Native women, who had been killed as a result of domestic violence. And we had 15 of these silhouettes, and there were 14 downtown businesses that agreed to put these silhouettes in their stores and restaurants for a period of about a week, so that as residents of Fargo-Moorhead were shopping or going to grab a bite to eat, they were confronted with this life-size silhouette that had either a statistic piece of information about domestic violence and the Native community, or had a real-world story about an individual who had been killed as a result of domestic violence. The formal report will have some comments from the business owners themselves. Verbally, they said it went really, really well, and they really enjoyed enjoyed's the wrong word, but they really appreciated having the pieces there and the conversations that were developed as a result of it. So by and large, and then these silhouettes were also a part of the community conversation on Friday evening. So they lined the back of the Fargo Theater as we were talking about the crisis. So it was a pretty impactful moment. So that was the film festival in a nutshell. There's some additional information there on the sheet about the entire festival, because as you can see from the program, we were in 3 cities throughout North Dakota this year. I'm going to change gears and talk a little bit about the Art Festival. Last year, the 2 events were held simultaneously. This year, we broke both of the events have taken on a life of their own. So the Art Festival actually starts at the Plains Art Museum on January 8th. And it's a Tuesday. It'll open on the 3rd floor of the Plains, and it'll be open free to the public for the entire month of January. And we have an artist reception scheduled for January 23rd, which is the same week as the MLK celebration. So you guys have the event on Monday. On Wednesday, we're having an artist talk where we'll invite artists from around the community to come and speak about their works that are part of the Art Festival. And it'll be from 6 to 8, and you are all invited to come and participate if you'd like. We had 35 artists from around the world submit as part of this year's exhibition. We had over 40 submissions this year, which is nearly double what we had last year. For me personally, it's really exciting to see the increases of engagement with both the film festival and the art festival, because as I mentioned last year, and the experience was true this year, we get a lot of negativity from both sides of the equation towards our festival. There are residents in North Dakota that tell us to take our festival somewhere else because human rights don't exist in North Dakota, and we have individuals outside of North Dakota who say, we'll never come to North Dakota for these festivals because human rights don't exist in North Dakota. So I think the increase in participation, both from artists as well as participants, really says that their opinions aren't true and that there is a strong support network for human rights in North Dakota, which I think is really exciting. So that's the art festival starts in January. Feel free to stop by anytime the museum is open. There's a great collection of 2D, 3D, and video work, as well as the night of our reception, there's going to be some live performance pieces that were submitted. So it's going to be a great collection of work. And then finally, I wanted to invite everybody to the last event of this in January the 7th. We are collaborating with the NDSU's Memorial Art Gallery to pull together basically an opportunity to see some more of the films that were part of the film festival and to hear additional speakers speak about human rights. If you can imagine it, the easiest way to describe the 7, which we're posing as an interactive human rights experience, is to think of TEDx. So this is a TEDx type of event that's focused specifically on human rights and social justice. We're going to have about 10 speakers, each one speaking for about 10 minutes, and the lineup will be announced here very soon, but we've got people talking about immigration and colonialism, as well as dance performances. We're going to have 4 films. We have a filmmaker from India who's going to be joining us either in person or via Zoom from Mumbai. And then we also have some really reputable people talking about organizing marches and how to stay engaged civically with your community. So it should be a really cool event. That one as well, we want this information to be open to the entire community, so that event is free, and it's from 6 to 9 at the NDSU Memorial Union on January 24th. So that MLK week will be pretty engaged with all the great events that are happening. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll let you get to the rest of your meeting.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. I mean, it shows really, it's minimal support that we can provide, but shows how far it can be extended by the work that you do. Thank you. Questions for Sean?
You know, I don't have any question, but I just want to, thank you for what you bring to the community, especially in bringing awareness to human rights.
Great.
Thank you,
Sean.
everybody.
I look forward to future activities as you're developing them.
Awesome. Take care, guys.
All right. All right, then we have our next presentation, and standing in for Rape and Abuse Crisis Center is Katie Christensen. If you want to join us, Katie, thank you for joining us. And this information came to us recently about a new initiative that you are involved with promoting. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. As Barry mentioned, my name is Katie Christensen, and I'm a member of the Changing Our Environment Committee. We serve as an advisory committee to Rape and Abuse Crisis Center in regard to prevention and work at the community level. Our committee consists of members from various backgrounds and industries throughout the area, and we come together basically to focus on preventing power-based violence at a community level. And so when I say power-based violence, I'm referring to a moment in time when somebody chooses to use power to harm another person. So it could be speaking harmful words, it could be that decision to raise a hand and strike a child or a partner or another person. It could be repeatedly showing up at somebody's place of employment or home after a breakup and they don't want to continue seeing that person, or touching somebody inappropriately. So we would refer to all of those different types of incidents as using power to harm someone else. The reality of the situation is most people have felt an impact of personal violence at some point in time, whether it's them personally or somebody that they know or love. I was drawn to this committee because I felt that their decision to work on a community level was something that I found to be very interesting, and I want to live in a community that doesn't tolerate violence. If we want to see drops in abuse, we need to change our culture. So basically what this program is called Green Dot. And we found this program because a few years ago we were approached by the library, and they had some questions and concerns about some violent incidents that they were seeing happen within their building. And so there were some conversations that we had, and we realized that if somebody is behaving in a violent or a harmful manner, asking them to leave doesn't necessarily stop the situation, because then they can just go and do that somewhere else. So we realized that we needed to have more of a community effort, so that if that person goes and continues that behavior in a different location, that location responds in the same way to try to stop the behavior, not just dismiss it or push it on to somebody else's plate. So that led us to this program called Green Dot, which is a bystander intervention program. And so to kind of explain Green Dot, what I want you to do is, in your mind, I want you to picture a map of downtown Fargo, and picture little red dots popping up in different locations throughout the map. And these red dots would represent acts of violence, like I had described before. And they're acts of violence that are not addressed, that nobody's there to intervene, they're not getting any attention, they're just happening. And if these red dots happen, they become our cultural norm. And so what Green Dot does is it trains people to somehow intervene or to somehow stop the violence in the middle of happening, or even prevent it before it's happening. So now imagine that those red dots are now being replaced by green dots. And if we can replace those red dots with green dots, then that becomes our cultural norm. That for the community, we don't tolerate these behaviors, that we are armed and equipped with options for stopping them. And obviously, this sounds like a great idea, but it's actually a rather daunting task. When you think about bystander intervention, I think when I first heard it, I was picturing like Superman in a cape who comes in and intervenes and saves the day. And we know that it's not always that easy, especially if you've ever been in a situation. Sometimes we don't know what to do. And this is probably like the thing that I really love about Green Dot, is that it gives different options for how you can respond in those moments. So Green Dot, the technique that we use, it's called the 3 Ds. And the first D is direct. And that is where you can directly talk to the perpetrator, or you can directly talk to the victim. So for instance, I was at the movie theater the other day, and I saw a woman, I assume she was the mom, but I don't know for sure, of a child who was maybe 5 or 6. And she just smacked him upside the back of the head and said, "I'm going to beat your butt if you don't knock it off." Clearly, that was a violent act that she was doing towards that child. I could have said to her, "You having a bad day? What's going on?" to try to diffuse the situation somehow. I could have directed my action towards her. I could have directed the action towards the child. "How are you doing? What's going on? What movie are you going to see? Do you know this person?" I could directly talk to the victim. And sometimes being direct doesn't feel comfortable for people. So the next D is delegate. And that's where we would then train people to find somebody else who can intervene. If you don't feel comfortable, who can you talk to? I had an incident a couple weeks ago. I was standing in line for a shuttle bus after a college football game. There was a guy a few feet back who was causing some concern, and I did not feel comfortable going over to him. So I went to the event staff, and I asked them, and I said, "There's this guy back there, I think he needs some attention." And they went and handled it. So if you don't feel comfortable doing something directly, you can delegate. And then the third D is distract, and that's where you create some type of distraction to stop the situation. So maybe in the movie theater, I spill my popcorn all over the ground and create a distraction that would maybe calm that woman down or remove her from that situation. Or there are a lot of different ways you can distract. Some of the examples in our training were like, if you're at a restaurant, maybe you start singing "Happy Birthday" really loudly, or you start like in on a bison chant, or do something that you create a distraction to draw the attention away from that violent situation. At this point in time, are there any questions that you have for me about Green Dot, about the program? I can go into my ask here in a minute, but I'm just wondering if there are any questions. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Letitia,
You ladies first, please. No.
Thank you for. Well, it sounds very exciting as a program. I'm curious to know where this curriculum, because I'm assuming there is a curriculum.
Yep,
came
there's,
from?
yeah, there's a program called it's called Green Dot. I actually have, so I went through the training, and so there is a full curriculum and a curriculum manual.
Okay.
I don't actually know who published it or who brought it out, but there is a full training. So there's like a full day, there's a 4-day training to become a facilitator, but then to actually like do trainings within, our hope is to maybe eventually do some of these trainings with like bar staff, college students, people in the downtown area, and that training is about 4 to 6 hours. And we have facilitators on our Green Dot community who can do these. So we would hopefully go into different organizations or go into different places in the community.
So how do you outreach? What are your outreach mechanisms?
That's what I'm doing right now, just coming here talking to you. So we are hoping to do a big Green Dot launch in probably about 9 months to a year. A little bit later from now is when we'll launch it in the community. At this point in time, what we want to do is focus groups. And so we're looking to do focus groups with different populations throughout the community. And one of the focus groups we want to do is on leadership, like city leadership within our community. So that's why I'm here, is to see if there would be 1 or 2 people from your commission who would be willing to attend a focus group. It would be about a 1 to 2 hour commitment. And you would be with other leaders from within the community, and somebody from our Green Dot committee would basically just lead a focus group asking questions about what do you see, what do you experience, what do you want for our community, what do you see as safe spaces, what do you see as harmful spaces, to gather that information. And we're hoping to do a lot of focus groups. I mean, 18 to 20 or so in the area. And so this would be one group that I'm kind of recruiting for, is going out to different boards like yours and commissions like yours to see if we could get 1 or 2 people to join. And then eventually we would want to start doing the bystander intervention training, which is more of that 4 to 6 hour program. And those would likely be more in like different businesses or organizations. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had a funny experience once in a McDonald's where somebody out of nowhere, didn't know the guy, decided to throw something at me and some very old people that were sitting next to me. And I was not reacting very much. The guy was screaming, ranting, and raving, and naturally it seems like he has some mental case.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about your collaboration with mental health initiatives, because often these things, these outbursts, they're a result of poor mental health. And there's a gradual change in the motivation for why do they do these violent acts to the point where they're just not able to help themselves,
Mm-hmm.
And this whole spectrum, are you going to deal with the whole spectrum, or are you just talking about, say, culturally inappropriate way of dealing with things, and with people who have control over their mental faculties, or are you going to go further than that?
Well, so at this point in time, our target area is the downtown area. So probably more or less like the bar and restaurant scene in the downtown area. But what we're hoping to do is train people and educate people on ways that they can intervene in a situation that could cause violence to somebody else, regardless of what the source of that violence is, regardless of who that person is. We want people to feel, the bystanders to feel like they have something that they can say or do in those moments to stop something. So our goal is to start with the downtown area, and then eventually we're hoping to expand to the campuses. And then from there, we would see where we are as a community, how is the program working, where else should we go? Are there other questions, comments?
No, okay. Anybody else, questions for Katie? So I want to be clear, the ask is you're looking for our participation and part of individual participation, 1 or 2 members from our.
Yeah, that's what we would really like to have, is 1 or 2 members from the Human Relations Commission that would be willing to serve in a focus group. So it would at tops, it would be a 2-hour commitment, is what I would say. I think the focus groups have been taking about an hour, maybe a little over. And they would be led by somebody from our committee, from our Changing Our Environment committee. And then there would be people from other commissions or boards in the area that would come together to make up that focus group.
Great.
That's what we're asking for.
I'm going to just do a quick, anybody that on the basis of the presentation would like to be a part of represent the Fargo Human Relations Commission on this focus group?
I'd be glad to.
And I would be also interested, but if we know the dates already, or if it's going to be ongoing,
Yeah,
multiple focus groups. But yeah.
Yeah, we would definitely be doing that. I think they would start, we're thinking towards maybe like February or March is when we would start. So we're trying to make some connections now. But we would definitely be open to, if you know other people who would like to serve or that would be good sources for the focus group, we would be very open to that too. So I can continue to be in touch with your group. But our initial ask is just to try to get some people on our focus group.
Great. Well, we have two quick ones, but Letizia, were you interested?
Yeah, I'm wondering if is there a reason why you would like only 2 of us?
Oh, you can have more. You can send more.
Because I saw people leaning in, and I felt guilty for
You can send as many as you want. I didn't want to say like anybody want to do it, and then so I wanted to make sure I got at least 1 or 2. But we would take anybody who wants to serve on the focus group can be on the focus group. We just didn't want the ask to feel too overwhelming.
Great. Well, we have for sure 2 of possibly 3, and so
Awesome.
I'm glad that we're having a commitment to go forward on this. So we'll get that contact information to you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that very much so.
And then if anybody else chooses to become a part of that, we will put that forward too. I'm thinking that it's helpful to be there, I mean, certainly with your own personal interest, but to be there representing the organization is really helpful too. We can ask for that information to be brought back to us as well. So.
Yeah, that would be great. I do have a few brochures. I have 5 here, so I'll just pass them around. If you want to look and see a little more information, you can look at it closer. But I'll be in touch with you then regarding the 2. So thank you very much. And I appreciate that you each serve on this committee and put time and effort into these issues. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Katie.
Katie, can we just make a quick recommendation that you also
Sure.
reach out to the Native American Commission?
Yeah, they're actually on our list.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, moving us into our discussing our strategic planning update. Well, as we met, it just seems like the other day, because it was on Tuesday night, and had great turnout from the commission. Again, thank you for taking a night out of what can be somewhat of a busy month. So I would just open this up. I know for sure one of the tasks we were given was to talk about our next step. Our facilitators, Rachel and Anita, stressed from the very beginning that this was the beginning of our strategic planning process, the 2 hours that we spent Tuesday night, and that we would have at least one other, as they requested, longer period of time, if not more, going forward. So one of the things we thought we could, first of all, let me just get a quick summary if there's anybody that wishes to highlight something they felt occurred Tuesday night that they wanted to bring to the group. We thought we'd be talking to people that weren't there. Since we were all there, we've all experienced it similarly. But the second task, like I said, is to be looking ahead at a time and location, I guess, would be settled. But any of you have thought about what you think would be a good timing? I remember you saying, Paul, this should be moving forward with great haste, because we're planning for 2019, which is right around the corner. So any indications? And time of day, I guess, would be the other question. And we'll probably do a doodle, I think, ultimately. But let's just get, I'm thinking, personally, if we could move into doing it in January and earlier in January, it would be preferable. So we keep this in our mind and are keeping the movement forward. Any specific thoughts? Either blackout dates that just absolutely would not be, don't even think about it?
The evening times would be best.
The evenings? We'd be looking at evenings.
And I still like the idea of doing a couple of shorter sessions. Instead, I know they want a longer session,
Okay.
but I think just for doing it in the evenings and for keeping people there and attentive, it might be a good idea to have, 2 2-hour sessions instead of 1.
Okay. Still continuing to break in. That 2-hour segment is kind of a...
It just seems like,
Optimum.
particularly for the hours or the time slots where we are available, to do 4 hours in an evening would be a lot.
Okay. All right. Anybody planning on leaving the country in January? Or the state? Okay. What's that?
What time?
I think it's pretty open right now. Whether we do it maybe the first week is a little aggressive, but maybe even that second week in January? Which would be the week of January 7th. Is that something we could be looking at?
Might have to leave the States.
That week? Okay. I think we maybe, and so maybe we stagger it. Now, of course, the week after that, no, the week after that would be the week of the 14th.
Yeah.
So we still would be ahead of the MLK week. Tia?
So Reach Partners sent us an email, and they have some times available in January.
Okay.
Which don't start until the second week in January, or the 15th. So yeah, you're looking mid-January is the earliest they could do it. Otherwise, it's 129, 128, and 131. So it's either that mid or they've got some availability at the very end. But I could put those in that doodle
Yeah.
poll
Let's do that.
for an evening time. And they were comfortable with 2 hours since that works best for the group.
Okay. All right. Good. So that's our input, and we're going to move forward on that.
And they said they sent out a brief, short survey
Yep.
that they want everybody to complete as soon as you can.
Thank you. Again, thank you for participating.
Mr. Chairman, is that an extension of the strategic planning? Is that what you're talking? Okay. And my apologies, I let somebody, Kara, I just couldn't get there the other night. A topic I'd just like us to chew on as we're strategically planning, and I know we've got our hands full. In my mind, there should come a day where we sincerely look at what it would mean to change our mission and our charge to be Human Rights Commission versus Human Relations Commission, and the implications of that. And I think that still I want us to still look to modeling other communities that have human rights ordinances with some teeth in them. So just in the background.
Sure.
Just in the background. I know these are long political paths.
I think you'd be pleased with the ambitions that got put down on paper from us.
Good.
That might be consistent with that. And I would certainly, I mean, you'll continue being looped into so if you can join us, I don't think this is
Thank you for that.
because you weren't there, the conversation will continue. Okay, well, we'll continue working. Thank you, staff, for working with Anita and Rachel, and we'll get that out and get that established on the calendar for upcoming scheduling. All right, well, I'm going to move us along because I know we've got some people that have some time constraints. Martin Luther King Jr. Day event update. Do we have someone that is going to be doing a report on that, Leticia, or?
It can be a team effort.
Okay.
So, well, we are on schedule for the January 21st event. We are currently crossing the T's and dotting the I's. And Reach Partners is also on board with this initiative. Since last meeting, last month, we had been working, I think, working on requests for proposal.
We hired a videographer.
All right, videographer to work on the videos for the award recipients, and also request for proposals for an American Sign Language interpreter. And I'm not sure how we are doing with that.
We sent out a video RFQs for American Sign Language interpreter and a photographer for the event, and those due dates are December 31st.
Okay. So we are hoping to be to be more inclusive and make the whole experience more accessible to all the participants. I don't think that there is anything else that would be new. Otherwise, we think we are on target.
It looks like you've got posters to be distributed.
Yeah.
Please take a stack of posters and distribute
And
them
promote.
around town. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for your work on that. It's become a premier January event for our community. Miranda, how do we do on responding to, this is our self-accountability report back. How did we do on our responding to both the strategic planning meetings and the announcement of this meeting?
I'm not sure on the strategic planning. That one was
Okay.
not under me. But as far as this one, it was the same as last month. There's still about 3 that I'm chasing down through multiple emails to get responses from.
Okay.
And we are encouraging the response as soon as possible. The invites are sent out 2 weeks ahead of time, and then with a follow-up when you receive the agenda a week ahead of time, as well as a reminder the day before. But the sooner we know, it always helps in making sure that we're ensuring we have a quorum present.
Thank you for doing that, and for being persistent, and we'll work harder on being more responsive. Someday, we won't have that report. Thank you. So do we have any other business before the commission today?
Have you done the attendance policy yet?
Yeah, it's our
Oh, I
attendance
just have
re-
one comment. I'm
Sure.
sure I didn't quite connect those dots. Somehow in here, there's a little bit of a flow issue that if we can tweak it, you send a notice out 2 weeks ahead of time of a meeting, and then we try to confirm within 24 hours prior to a meeting if we have a quorum. There's a gray area there where we also allow somebody to arrange to call in 4 hours before. Somehow if we can move that telephone capability up, because that might affect the quorum in your decision to know that you have a quorum, if you know in advance of 4 hours that somebody's calling in, or at least encourage them to arrange a call-in at the 24-hour mark rather than the 4-hour mark, if that makes sense. So at the 24-hour pre-meeting notice, if somebody says, no, I can probably call in, that'll completely change the ability to have a quorum or not. But if they don't know they're going to call in and don't arrange it till the next day, just before the meeting, we could have maybe had a quorum.
So I think that the confusion on this is, so you're expected to let us know if you're going to attend one way or the other, right before 24 hours. The call-in is if your plans change and now you thought you could attend and now you can't, we need at least 4 hours to get it set
How about
up.
if 24 hours you say you expect to attend or call in to try plant that seed in advance?
Yeah, and again, I think it's, okay, let's say that I said, I'm going to be there, and then I suddenly realized that I'm infectious, so I don't want to come, but I feel like I can participate. So but it allows the 4-hour window, I think, is to make sure we have the facility set up to accommodate the calling in. So it would be, I'm attending, now I'm not going to be in person, so I need to let people know. I can't just call 5 minutes ahead saying, could you set up the...
No, but some people may know 24 hours ahead of time, hey, I'm in Bismarck, but I can call in.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, I won't be in town, but I can call in. Somehow, if you just kind of open that opportunity to call in earlier, because it might affect your decision on a quorum earlier.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely not saying that you have to wait until
Okay, good.
4 hours before to let us know.
Good, that's
Yeah,
all.
you can let us know anytime if you.
I want people to call in. I'd rather have people call in than miss a meeting.
Yeah, definitely. That's, all right.
Mr. Chairman, I have
Yes.
to leave, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Right.
I just wanted, one comment I wanted to make is that I saw the headline, so I don't have the details, but I think one thing that I think we're all following right now is that there's a bill in front of the U.S. Congress, Savannah's Law, that has a particular relevance to our community and to the nation as a whole. I think anything we can be doing, I don't even know if the window is closed, I know it's a very small one, but that to be pushing our own House member to really push to get that law introduced and passed in the House. This is the one in terms of gathering data on particularly missing and murdered Indigenous women. It was unanimously passed in the Senate, and there's a committee chair that's holding it up, so it might not be heard. So I guess I'm encouraging all of us to put pressure locally on our congressperson to really move that to completion. And I don't have a lot of detail, but I think it's easy to call.
Thank you, and happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good?
I just can't not look at Hamida over there and say, I'm so proud of you, you've got your citizenship, and I haven't seen you since you've gotten your citizenship, and I'm just so proud of you.
Thank you.
And welcome. And thanks for everything you do.
Tia, did you have something?
Yeah,
additional? And then
Commissioner Strand, I think back to the attendance policy, I understand where it's kind of unclear, and we could rewrite that a little bit to provide more clarification and then bring it back.
Okay,
Because I think I understand what you're saying.
thank you. And then we can do a reading again, just to make sure we've got it in front of us.
Right.
Mature.
No, I was just going to add to the citizenship thing.
Oh, you're on.
'Cause they just had, my wife just got her citizenship too, along with other 137 people last week. That was great.
131.
Oh, congrats.
31 or 37?
31.
Oh,
Mostly from Liberia.
Wonderful. That's a great ceremony, and it has so much personal and countrywide implications. That's
and it was my birthday, so it was the best birthday America could give.
Oh, no.
Wonderful.
The best America could give me.
Thank you, and welcome again myself. Leticia, did you?
Yes, I was going to give a quick update on my suggestion and advocacy for this group to consider a field trip to Winnipeg. It was suggested that we try to contact the Human Rights Commission on the other side of the border to see if we can time this field trip with a joint meeting to see, to get to know each other, but also to see what they are doing and exchange notes. And I did make 3 attempts at contacting the office of the Manitoba Human Rights Commission. I was able to speak with somebody I believe is a receptionist, and she was going to relay the information, and I have since tried, because I was hoping that we could maybe attempt a trip before January 6th in my ambitious, dreams. So it doesn't look like it's going to be possible, but if you can, the reason why I was trying to do this, and we still hopefully continue to work on this as a group, but if you can go visit the museum before January 6th to catch the Nelson Mandela exhibit, that would be great. And also to time with what we talked today, the missing and murdered indigenous women. There is on the 2nd floor an alcove at the Human Rights Museum that's specifically for this topic. And Canada has done tremendous work in recent years, and reports and national commissions. So there is a lot of resources. Again, just
Thank you. And that certainly is. I know we did some research on getting the cost of vehicles and timing and so forth, and we'll be moving. That won't happen by January 6th, but it would still keep that moving forward. And thank you for making those connections, though, because I think that would really add to the purposefulness of our trip, would be to have a intentional meeting with our counterparts internationally. So thanks, Leticia. Anything else for the good? Wow, I feel like we really, thank you for all the people who were here from public and the presentations. We packed it in today. Tia?
I do have one item under staff reports.
Thank you.
It's not so much a report as it is an announcement. Tomorrow is National Homeless Persons Memorial Day. So starting at 6:45 will be a 5-block walk, which will begin at First Presbyterian downtown and ending at First Lutheran Church, where a memorial service will be held at 7 p.m. So if you can't walk in the event, if you just go to the First Lutheran Church for the 7 p.m. memorial event, you could do that too. There's a lot of information on their Facebook page.
Thank you.
More than I can say right now. So it's like the reason behind it and why it happens and why it's tomorrow.
Okay, 5:45.
6:45 to 8.
Sorry.
Yep.
And where is the starting point for the?
The starting point is at First Presbyterian parking lot downtown at 6:45 p.m. tomorrow.
Thank you. I didn't mean to overlook the staff report. Any other public comment? Just to make sure we finish off our agenda as it's printed. If not, I would consider this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you all, and happy holidays.